Good morning. Welcome back. It's the morning meeting. It's 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Sean, Tim, and I here to round up your day. Looking forward. Lots to talk about. So, as they say in the business, let's get at it. To it, for it, buy it. 2 o'clock Eastern Time today, the Fed will announce its rate decision, widespread expectation, quarter point or half a point. We're going to talk about that and what it means today. Chairman Powell, one of America's most powerful and unknown people for most of the public, we'll have a press conference at 2:30. At 3 o'clock, Jim Grant and I will be on two-way, and you'll get to hear Mr. Grant's reaction and analysis, and you'll be able to ask him questions. So look forward to that. Vice President Harris is delivering remarks at 12:15 to the Congressional Hispanic Caucus in Washington. She's got a virtual campaign event at 3:45. Details about that coming up. President Trump back in purple territory in a blue state. He's got a 7 o'clock Eastern Time rally in Uniondale, New York. We'll talk about that as well. Don't know what Tim Walz is doing today. If any of you do, please let us know. J.D. Vance is in North Carolina for a rally at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Doug Emhoff, campaign event in Gotham City at 4:30, and then a campaign event in Brooklyn, USA at 7:25. I wish I could go to that, but I'm busy. Joe Biden, reception for the Hispanic Heritage Month at 5 o'clock. White House briefing is at 1 o'clock. All right, guys. A question I want to ask more regularly, which is not that there can't be more than one story in a news cycle, but what's the story going to be today by the early afternoon, early evening, late afternoon? Is it the Fed? Is that the big political story today? Is it more discussion about which side's rhetoric is more negative? Is it Trump's rally in Long Island? Tim, what do you think the story will be for the political press corps today?
Yeah, always hard to predict exactly what's going to happen, particularly in this election. But I do think it is the Fed decision. We've been watching for this date, for this decision for a month plus now. It tells us a little bit about the nature of the economy and how things are going. I think there are things that are humming in the background. Mark, to your point, the question about rhetoric. I think Springfield's still humming in the background. I think the closer we get to October 1st, without an answer on what we're going to do on a government shutdown, those are all things that could pop. But I think the big story today is the Fed decision.
Sean Spicer.
I'll put an asterisk on there. I think it depends. If the Fed cuts the rate by 0.25, that might be the story if nothing else happens. If they cut it by 0.5, I think that's definitely the story. I will say as a asterisk to the asterisk, I have my own personal thoughts on whether it actually matters or not. That's separate, but I think the political press corps will jump all over this as if somehow this is going to be monumental. I think they're wrong on that. That's my take. I do think how the House vote goes could also potentially, I think to Tim's point, I mean, there's a lot of that rally. Who knows what he says? The House vote, if it actually were to pass, I mean, they're saying he's down 7 votes. The speakers, I mean, point is, there are some variables out there today that I think 3 or 4 stories are competing for, and we can see how they happen, but also how people react to them.
I say respectfully that people who work on the Hill, have ever worked on the Hill, think what happens on the Hill matters in a presidential cycle. It almost never does. Now, in my view. Now, let's talk about the Fed. And I forgot to remind everybody of 2 things, as always. Whether you're watching on YouTube or you're watching here on the two-way platform, we'd love to have you part of the conversation. If you're here on two-way, raise your hand, electronic hand, if you'd like to ask a question. As always, we encourage you, if you've never asked a question before, we'd love to have you be part of it. And whether you're on whatever platform you're on, if you're going to engage in the chat, please remember the ethos of two-way and of the morning meeting: peace, love, and understanding, and the presumption of grace. Please keep your comments PG at most, and G is preferred. So let's say, Sean, you were the comms director for the Trump campaign, and you're having your morning meeting with the senior staff, and they say, Sean, how should we frame the Fed announcement? Give your 30-second spiel of what you tell your campaign, and then Tim will do the same. How are the presidential campaigns framing this? Because it is a bit of a bank shot for sort of the campaigns to be engaging on it, because you don't really know what voters are going to think. So, Sean, you first.
Yeah, and again, that's kind of what I go back to. I think that this is a little late in the game, and the effects of it will not have there will not be the effects that I think a lot of people think. That being said, I would remind people inflation is still way too high. It's the policies of this administration that have put home prices out of reach for so many people, and under my administration, we'll make America great again.
Tim, what should Kamala Harris and her team be saying about this to prepare for the day?
I do think one thing that's unique for the Harris campaign is to not armchair on this too much, because Donald Trump has gotten out over his skis on talking about how there could be some presidential influence on the Fed. I think there is baked in good news here regardless. I think it's hard for Trump to spin it and say it's negative. So I think, look, there's an implicit reminder here that prices are coming down. I think that is really important. I don't think given the history, particularly of Biden-Harris on job creation, that the softening labor market question feels like it's going to get too much oxygen. So I think it is just a reminder that we're turning the corner on a lot of economic questions.
Yep. All right. Hands up again if you want to get in and ask a question, make a comment. We'll get to you in a moment. So in the daybook this morning, I put a couple of paragraphs from our friend, two-way stalwart Liam Donovan. He's a Republican strategist, but he writes with clarity and fair-mindedness. I want to show you what Liam wrote, and I want you guys to respond to it when he this would be first Harris 103. Here's how he framed it. He basically said, what's the best case? And in a race that most people think is tied, what's the best case to make for each side? Harris for Harris. She's ahead in the polls. She's got the look of a winner. Her campaign is executing a good strategy. Her net favorable on her public image now for the first time, basically since the start of the administration, up 17 points in 2 months. She's got a more motivated base. She's got a fundraising advantage, a ground game advantage, and the third party and independent candidates seem to not be catching on. Those are all positives for her. And then positives for Trump. Let's please show 104. He's polling better than he did in 2016 and 2020, and that suggests, again, if the polls continue to, as they did those cycles, understated support, he's in good shape. Despite the fact that she's had an incredible run, she hasn't spent one day in the barrel, has maybe lost one or two news cycles narrowly. Nonetheless, she's still only narrowly leading, and in some measures, she's not leading at all. He still has an issues advantage, although that has narrowed on the economy, and he's still seen as the change candidate. Now, before you guys react to that, I want to show you what one additional political analyst said about how Kamala Harris and her campaign are doing. Please play 106. This is Joe Rogan.
She showed that she's. I think she.
Let me tell you, before I say anything, I just want to say, whoever's helping her, whoever's coaching her, whoever's the puppet master running the strings, you did a fucking amazing job.
She did a great job.
They did an amazing job from the moment Biden drops out, forcing Biden to drop out. Right, whatever they're doing, whoever's writing those speeches, getting her to deliver them, coaching her, she's nailing it. She nailed that one speech. She's like, "Say it to my face."
Oh yeah,
everybody's cheering.
Yeah, she nailed it, dude.
And then last night, to me, when I was like, "Oh my God, this is jujitsu," where she's like, "If you go to his rallies, his crowds are boring. They're tired. They all leave
early.
My crowds are the best crowds. I have the number one crowd." He couldn't help himself.
And she got him. She baited him on that. She walked him right into it.
100%. 100%. See, the difference in that debate was not a difference in like who's going to have better policies, who's going to be better for the country. The difference in the debate, in my opinion, was who was better prepared. She was way better prepared. And even when it came to answering tough questions, instead of answering, she would just say things that she believes.
Yeah, sure.
And they sounded real good.
Yeah, that's
the soundbite.
That's called being a savvy politician.
It's also called being someone who's working with a team versus someone who's like, they said Trump, that deal was the best deal.
All right. So, Tim, what do you think of Liam's analysis, and what do you think of Rogan's analysis about the race? Anything you tweak in what they're saying?
Well, look, I have always said that Joe Rogan has a fantastic political point of view and podcast. Check the record. But I do buy Liam's analysis on both sides. I think there are those strengths for both candidates, and it's why we are in this slow-moving horse race that is going to be extremely close, that's operating within the margin of error, and that those strengths are that what they're going to carry through to the very end, and it's why it's close. So yeah, I think he's spot on.
Sean.
Yeah, I don't disagree with much of what's, I mean, obviously you can nitpick some of the stuff, but bottom line is, I think generally speaking, we're in a very tight race. It's going to come down to turnout towards the end. And both of them have pros and cons. There was a comment that somebody put in the chat yesterday, that I think Nate Silver made that I thought was interesting. It said, someone's got a great hand that they're playing poorly, and someone's got a poor hand that they're playing great. And it was in the chat yesterday, and I thought about it afterwards, and I think that pretty much sums it up. I think we see these polls with the issues favoring Trump. Therefore, he should have a decided advantage. And then you see all of the stuff that Kamala Harris is having. But I agree with, I mean, look, I've said this before, they're getting away with stuff that I would kill for, I would dream about. And as an operative, you can't blame them for taking advantage of the situation, right? So my hat's off to them.
I just
I want to
very
talk
clear
about
on that point, because I think
yeah.
that point does get made fairly frequently, but like there are some answers from Trump's town hall yesterday that like if Kamala Harris said them, we would be losing our minds from now through election day.
No question. And I'm going to bring up Trump, Harris, in the media and specificity, but I want to be on the record, as I've been in the past. It's not like Trump is super specific, but as we talked about, I think here yesterday, Trump was president before. Trump has some specifics that people know on the economy. They know where he stands. I want to tweak what I think is the conventional wisdom about her media strategy. People say, well, she's going to start doing this alternative media. She's going to do podcasts. She's going to do local, etc. And that she's going to cleverly go around the national media, as past presidents and presidential candidates have done. I think from the focus group, from talking to people, from looking at the polling, when they get through the Association of Black Journalists interview and there's no headlines about word salad, even though she dodged lots of stuff, I think they high five in Wilmington and they're like, all right, we got another major serious interview out of the way. No big mistakes. Great. I think this may be, if she loses, the biggest mistake of the campaign by either side, because she's not showing people what she stands for on things. And they say, well, she can do it in these local interviews. You really can't. And so my question to you guys is it too cute by half? Is it a mistake to think all she needs to do is say, I did 7 interviews this week. I did one with Green Bay, Channel 7. I was on a podcast with the cast of The West Wing. I was on some radio station in Phoenix. Is it possible that because those interviews are not going to give most voters a sense of what she actually wants to do for the country, including and especially in the economy, that she's making a mistake and she has to do serious things to give people an idea? Tim?
Yeah. I think the media strategy that they are executing right now is one that has like quite a bit of measured confidence in it, right? I don't think that they will say that they are
stopping you. I'm respectfully stopping you. I'm asking a very specific thing. You're saying this is a good, but people are saying, yeah, this is a good plan because she can get away with it. And they can high five because they do another podcast. I'm asking a very specific thing. Is it possible that by pursuing the strategy they seem to be pursuing, that she's not going to give voters a sufficient sense of what she stands for? And she said 47% and she can't get any higher because only 47% will elect someone who they don't understand what they do as president. Is that possible that this is a mistake?
I don't think that information gap is that big, but it is possible. Like to your point, sure, it's possible. Like you could, in hindsight, make that argument, but we won't know, right? And I do think the strategy is, what I was saying is, there is a level of measured confidence that getting her out there and doing local interviews, getting her on podcasts, doing alternative media, that is information that is enough to get out and to saturate and to help people make a decision. Say like the other point is, and this is not a problem for Trump, to your point, because people know who he is, but he's not doing it either, right? So like he's
not. But again, when I asked in the focus group, what does Trump stand for in the economy? More energy, less regulation, tax cuts. They don't have an answer for us. Sean, before you get in, Tim, I want to ask you one more question. Do you consider her interview with the Black Journalists Association yesterday to have been a success?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor. Sean?
As I've said, if I were her, I'd keep doing what, and I don't want, I mean, look, as a Republican that doesn't want her to win, I hope she does a ton of interviews. I hope she does an interview a day. I don't care with who. It doesn't matter because we can figure out how to do something with it. I understand why they're holding her back. That being said, I would tell her team, if I had to, be completely straight, keep doing what you're doing and fill the gap with paid media. I mean, she's got a ton of money. I would flood the zone and keep those key battleground states, just go after the low propensity voters that she really needs to reach with mail, with radio, digital. I mean, I would just flood the zone with so much stuff that they think they know. Remember, it's all about perception. If you are seen as being out there and seen as communicating with them, sometimes people forget, oh, I didn't hear it on an interview. I saw it in a mail piece. Or so look, I hope she does more interviews.
Okay.
She shouldn't, and they can fill that gap.
Let me say one more thing. Bill Clinton, 1992, he ran as a Democrat for right to work, the death penalty, NAFTA, welfare reform. And that was in the primary, right? Those were general election popular, but in the nomination, those were not popular. He went out there every day in speeches and interviews, and he defended those things. That showed people that what he stood for, and it showed a political and intellectual courage and verbal dexterity. That is her weak spot. And you saw that when she ran for president in 2019, when she was asked to defend her position on healthcare for single payer, for Medicare for all, she couldn't do it. That's why you don't see her defending all these issue position changes, because she cannot do that well, at least based on the current record. And I think, again, what may be the biggest mistake of the campaign, it doesn't matter if she's doing local interviews or the interview she did yesterday. If I'm right, and again, the focus group strongly suggests this, that voters don't want to see an hour interview in which they learn nothing about what she would do on the economy and not hear a robust defense, where what she's doing is trying to get through the question, the way some local anchors and network anchors try to get through a segment, not trying to accomplish anything, just get through it. I could be wrong, but I think that's at least a risk that she's taking. Speaking of anchors who just try to get through the segment, Judith of Manhattan, aka Mr. Kelly. What's on your mind, Mr. Kelly? Greg Kelly, welcome in.
Well, thank you for asking. Kamala Harris strikes me as somebody who is under the influence. I've seen it before. I think Americans have seen it before. I think people can see it. The pros refuse to see it. And before anybody gets mad, or if I were on a regular TV show, all hell would break loose. But for a long time, even in the conservative media space, we were inhibited from saying that Joe Biden had cognitive issues. Everybody knows it. Everybody knew it. And then finally, when people really started to say it, they said it was cheap fakes and all that stuff. This woman strikes me as having a pill problem or an alcohol problem. And I think people are the erratic, the unpredictability, the uneven performance from day to day. It's weird. I think people know it. I think the political press, Joe Rogan has just gone mainstream. He's dazzled by the last cool thing, and you think, wow, gee whiz. He's gone mainstream. We have a lot of people out there who are supposed to be paid political observers, and they refuse, or they can't, or they won't tell us what everybody is seeing. And one last thing, right, Mark, you once said in your book, the longest chapter is going to be about media complicity in covering up for Joe Biden, right? The same thing, and I think it's happening right now.
All right, Greg, give us one piece, what you would say is the most emphatic evidence of your thesis. One piece of evidence, just one. Point this to something that you're keen on. Just one thing.
Mark, I was once, I guess I still am, an alcoholic. I've been sober for 8 years. I know it when I see it. And respectfully, Mark, you're doing a little bit of gaslighting in that. Can you name one thing? Well,
no,
I can use.
I'm just asking.
When you're on a show,
I'm not gaslighting you, Greg. I'm not gaslighting you. I'm just asking you for people, because a lot of people are listening to you and saying, how would he know such a thing? So you're saying one is just you know what the behavior is like. But for people who want to test your premise, I'm asking if you can say, go watch your speech at X or whatever, because people aren't just going to accept what you're saying without being able to see it with their own eyes. So what would you point them to?
I would point to elements of NABJ yesterday. I would point to the Philadelphia interview. I would point to the comments just prior to the Philadelphia interview. Has anybody noticed how she's touching her face all the time? And if this seems like too outlandish or tough to handle, I've seen and heard on mainstream media for years all kinds of wild pieces about Donald Trump must be on Adderall. Donald Trump is doing this. So this is not like extreme.
Yeah,
and it should be discussed. It should be discussed.
It is a fair point that the left says all sorts of things about Trump. Greg, thank you. All right, Sean or Tim, would you either of you like to touch that with a 90-foot pole, or would you like to just let people go do their own video research?
No, that was insane.
All right, Sean?
I will just say that I will now go back and look at the video. But I mean, I think that if you're gonna talk about this stuff, I mean, it's not the first that I've heard of it, but I think that when you make, I think in my head, I'm going back to like Elian Gonzalez being taken out of Cuba and people trying to diagnose somebody from afar. It takes a lot more than visual.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Greg. Mark, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
Hi. Yes, I'm from the wonderful county of Luzerne County I'm in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, and I'm an undecided voter.
Mark, you're the most powerful person we've talked to so far today. Welcome in. Who did you vote for in 2016, Clinton, Trump?
I voted for Clinton.
And who'd you vote for in 2020, Trump, Biden?
I voted for Biden.
All right. So why aren't you voting for Harris necessarily?
Well, I changed my vote this past year. Not my vote, my party. I was an independent, and then I became a Republican, and I wanted to vote for Nikki Haley, but then she dropped out, and so now I'm somewhere in between Vice President Harris and former President Trump.
How did you? What caused you to move away from the Biden-Harris ticket philosophy? Their record? What caused that to happen?
It's been the economy. It's I know it's getting better, but it's been the economy is the main reason. And I also I'm a Jewish American. I'm struggling with what's going on in Gaza, and it's been a really tough year being in the Jewish community.
Yeah. Mark, I want to turn you over to Sean and Tim because I'm sure they have questions. But first, I'd love to know if you've got a question that you'd like to ask them.
No, I don't have any. I'm just I'm taking in the information every day, and it's just it's fascinating to me. Everything.
Yeah. Do you get direct mail from both the Trump side and the Harris side?
I do.
Is any of it persuasive to you, or you just throw it in the garbage?
Garbage.
All right, Tim. Question for Mark.
Those mailers are designed to be thrown in the garbage. That's that. You look at it for 2 seconds, you flip to the other side, you throw it away. Mark, what would you want to hear more about? Is that part of it?
I definitely would like to hear more from Vice President Harris. In even if it's, I'd like to hear more in national media. I do understand why she's doing local interviews, but I just want to hear more. I know that the debate when I watched the debate, I didn't really get a sense also of either candidate really putting forth any real economic agenda.
What would you say is the number one issue that you're going to base your vote off of?
I think it's going to be the economy. I'm pretty sure it will be the economy and where we're going from here. And
so let me just, can I,
Sure.
So when you say the economy, we're 7 days out. Is it a policy that someone can espouse or tell you about, or is it a change in the environment? Like what's going to be that thing that you go, or are you just wrestling with which candidate can help you the best?
I am wrestling with which candidate can help me the best. I'm right now I'm caregiving for my mother, and I'm not working, and I don't know how much longer that's going to be for. She's doing okay, and she's got plenty of assistance, but I'm just wrestling with that, and I'm also wrestling with where our country is going.
I think it's pretty clear then that Donald Trump will do better for you and your family. So, all right, thank you.
Strong pitch, strong closing pitch, Sean.
Mark, yeah, Sean always wants to get in the last pitch. Mark, we're super grateful that you came. We hope you'll come back regularly. Our best to your mom. We hope she's doing okay. And again, we'd love to just keep in touch with you about how you're making the decision. And if you get any good direct mail that is worth sharing with us, please bring it with us or send it in. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Really
Can I
enjoyed
just real
having you
quick?
here.
What, Mark? Hold on. You're getting like the issues that you're getting in your mailbox and seeing, and the phone calls. Is it the Harris campaign going at the economy and the Trump campaign, or are they coming at you in two different ways?
They're coming at me in two different ways.
And what is that?
So the mailer that I've been getting with regard to the Trump campaign is that, remember how good it was back in when I was president, and I think I saw a mailer, or maybe it was something similar to a mailer that had to do with the tax credit for children. I'm single, so it doesn't really affect me, but I'm happy for all of the families out there that would need it.
Okay.
Mark, thank you again. Come back regularly, please. All right. Grateful for Mark to have joined. And oops, hold on. Having some technical difficulties because my point and click skills. All right. Kim, I find your son's artwork so irresistible. I always want to just see it closer. So tell folks who don't know, tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
I'm in North Carolina. I'm undecided. And I did Trump in 2016 and Biden in 2020.
Yep. What's on your mind today?
My question is for you. I watched all your undecided panelists in your videos, and I was wondering, did you get the sense that the undecideds would have a plan going into the booth, or they would just kind of walk into the booth and make their decision within that split second?
Yeah. Now, remember, they can vote early too, right? So it's not the same necessary drama of waiting till election day, although they might. I didn't ask them that. You know, after every time I do a focus group and we show it, I hear from a lot of nice, well-meaning people about how I screwed it up by not asking the right questions. And that's
I didn't mean it that way. I was just curious.
No. I didn't say you did. I'm just saying what you singled out is what a lot of people said I should have asked them. I didn't ask them purposely because we want to have them back. And I don't want to sort of interfere with that process. So I don't know the answer to that. I think my guess is just the way human nature works, and the fact that you could see, maybe anguish is not a word they'd accept, but you could see that they're grappling pretty tough with this decision. So my guess is that they're not going to decide anytime soon, barring some significant development, right? Barring some revelation, some international incident, something that really pushes maybe not just them, but a large segment of the undecided. But my guess is that barring something like that, they'll wait till the end, whether they vote absentee, early, by mail, whatever they do, or Dropbox. My guess is that they're not going to decide anytime soon, because you saw in their discussion, right? I don't think Kamala Harris is going to do enough to satisfy them on the blanks that they think she's either liberal or they don't know what to think. I don't think she's going to satisfy that. And I think the Trump campaign will probably make at least some headway on putting those two factors in sharp relief, that she's liberal and that she won't say what she's going to do. And I don't think that on the evidence we have that Donald Trump is going to suddenly be palatable to them in terms of personality. And again, you saw it throughout. It's policy for Harris, it's personality for Trump. So if those are the things that have them kind of stuck, and those things aren't likely to change, my guess is it's not going to be an easy decision. It's going to take a while for them to decide. That'd be my guess. Guys, Kim, thank you. Guys, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, no, I do continue to think that the advantage there is with Harris, because there's time to fill in the blanks and there's not time for Donald Trump to change his personality.
Right.
I would just say this is so unique because it's like she's the incumbent, but she's not the incumbent. And normally a late breaker is against the incumbent. But this is such a unique race. So we'll have to, it'll be really interesting to see where the late breakers go. Cause normally this wouldn't help the quote unquote incumbent, but I don't know if how she really is or isn't the incumbent. She is the incumbent in some ways and not in the others.
Yep. Kim, thank you. Please come back regularly. Give your son our best. All right. We're in our affiliates. We're going to run just a little bit over today. Brandon, tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting, and what's on your mind, please.
I'm right outside of Chicago, in Indiana. First-time voter. You guys kind of convinced me it's my duty. Leaning towards Trump just because I haven't heard anything substantive from Kamala Harris. I watched the journalist interview, and she's artfully dodged everything. in regards to what the earlier speaker said about her being drunk, I had to guess it may be just nerve or antidepressants, which most of the country can relate to. I kind of wouldn't go there with it. But my question for you, I've been wanting to ask this for a while, is in general, where is the stem of the media bias that you see? Is it like a Noam Chomsky-esque manufacturing consent? Is it just a confluence of bias amongst everybody in that industry? Where's the root of it in general? Is that the affidavit signed by the whistleblower from ABC, is that just going to go away? Is this like nothing? The fact that it was sent before the debate and it outlined the questions that weren't going to be asked, and they weren't. And as a side, if I can ask one more for Sean, Speaker of the House, press secretary seems like the most stressful job I've ever seen, but Sarah Huckabee said that it was her favorite job she's ever had. What is enjoyable about that job? It just seems terrible to me. I could not imagine doing that.
Brandon, the second question is the subject of Sean's forthcoming memoir, and the first question could be a doctoral thesis. But I'll do a quick response. And we always say we'll do more shows on the media because we will. I think that most people who work in the media, for whatever reason, are liberal. They just have liberal positions. They hang out with Democrats more. It's a little bit of a self-fulfilling thing, right? They're liberal, so they are more likely to hang out with Democrats. Democrats enjoy reporters in general, not across the board, but they enjoy hanging out with reporters more with Republicans. And because reporters burn and treat Republicans badly over time, those relationships are less likely to build up. Most Republicans who get favorable coverage have comms staffers who have good relationships with reporters. There's a correlation there. But those relationships don't exist nearly as deeply in the political press corps and with political operatives. And then Trump has supercharged the whole thing because now, since 2017, reporters and news organizations have felt it's their mission and obligation and moral requirement that they do everything they can to make sure Donald Trump doesn't win. Those are some of the reasons. There's always been liberal press bias. It's not the only bias the press has. It doesn't mean Republicans never get favorable coverage. It doesn't mean Donald Trump is covered correctly, because he's not. But the bias in general exists that way. I don't know about the ABC affidavit. I've had no time to do reporting on it. The fact that the New York Post hasn't written a story about it tells you that the thing does not check out sufficiently to be even floated in the New York Post. And so the only conclusion I can reach as of now is the thing is completely phony. Because if it weren't, I think we'd know by now that it was real. That person, if there were such a person, the specificity with which they wrote would allow ABC to identify that person. There's just not going to be that many people who would fit the description that person put on themselves. So I'm not saying it's a fraud. I'm just saying, based on what I know so far and how it's been treated, it seems like it's just completely phony to me, which was a bad idea to do because it undermines and distracts from some real legitimate concerns about how ABC conducted the debate. Sean, why'd you love that job so much?
Yeah, well, let me just say, I echo most of your stuff about the media. It's about the type of person that goes into the field generally fits the bill. Number two, not just it's the industry itself, what they're taught, and the world that they live in. I would say this on the ABC News thing. It is funny. Back early in my career, Sam Donaldson came to speak to a group of press secretaries, and he kind of talked about how he approached asking questions and getting answers. And he used to talk about this example. He'd say, "Did you steal the cookie?" And then the person would immediately deny stealing the cookie. And he'd say, "Then we got their soundbite and all this." And he would talk about how you properly deny something, or, and ABC, the interesting thing about this is they haven't addressed it. And to Mark's point, I actually think it would be pretty easy to come out and say, this person doesn't exist, or we've looked at the complaint and this is just to debunk it, considering the world that we live in. If you are ABC corporate and you saw this, what is intriguing to me is that they actually haven't commented on it. The last thing I would say is, look, and Mark joking aside, but I don't make any money off of my old books, but there's a book I wrote called The Briefing when I first came out that kind of goes through this, if you ever care. It's probably like $2 on Amazon now. But I mean, look, it's an unbelievable honor. I grew up as a kid in Rhode Island, and the idea that you could be the press secretary of the United States, the back door to my office was literally 15 feet from the door of the Oval Office. It's a pretty just unreal experience to think that you can climb that. I mean, in 8th grade, I didn't go on the trip to Washington, D.C. because we couldn't afford it. To suddenly be like, holy smokes, I'm here doing this, and the opportunities that you get to be part of decisions that are fundamentally change the country, protect the country. I mean, I will tell you, it's an honor of a lifetime to serve in that capacity. And I've done a lot in terms of the military and Capitol Hill, and it's not even in the same stratosphere.
Well, I'll buy
Tim,
your book if you promise to sign it for me.
Yeah.
If I get a chance to meet up with you.
I'll tell you what, I'll do you one better. I'll do you one better. If you DM me, go to my website, Sean Spicer's a contact, I'll send you a signed copy. You shouldn't, in the Biden economy, if you vote for Trump, I'll give you a book.
And just a little bit, I'm sorry to take a little time, but my grandfather was a professor, head of a journalism department at University of Hawaii. But he was also military and conservative. He was a liaison during the Vietnam War. So like I kind of grew up in both worlds and seeing it. But even as a somewhat conservative guy, I'm a big Noam Chomsky fan, and it just the exact verbiage coming from everybody from the press just seems coordinated in a sense, but that it could be just a pattern bias.
Yeah, it's not totally coordinated the way it might be, but it might as well be, because not just pattern bias, but because of the bonds and relationships that exist. So, for instance, if there's a debate, and I'm not saying this happened in the ABC debate, but if there's a debate, you're going to see the moderators and the researchers call the Democrats and say, "Hey, do you have any good question ideas for the other side?" And, "Hey, what about this? What about that?" You're far less likely to see them call the Republicans and ask the same thing. And that's just an example of the relationships that exist that are just asymmetrical. Brandon, grateful to you for joining. How did you find two-way in the morning meeting?
It was a YouTube recommendation. I just a little suggestion, if I could, make sure you're telling everybody like how to get involved and how to get their reports. Because it took me for a second. There's also an app called Two Way that has nothing to do with Two Way that I downloaded too many times. You just remind people where they can go for instructions on how to get involved.
Yes,
because I love all the different. You're doing the Lord's work, man. Just like journalism, like just unbiased and let people speak, and the grace. I have so many friends on both sides that think that Democrats are trying to destroy the country and Trump is trying to become a dictator. To have like an actual conversation is so incredibly important. I think you grasp how important it is, but it really is.
Brandon, thank you. We'll put you right in our sizzle reel. That was awesome. Thank you. Come back regularly. All right. Grateful to you. Tim, would you take the job of White House press secretary under Kamala Harris if she wins? Would you accept that job?
Yeah, I think anybody in Democratic politics would. John, I will say at the rally last night, they announced former White House press secretary was going to be on stage, and I held my breath for a second. I thought you were going to hold the town hall. So,
Tim, if you're named White House press secretary, I'm going to get my press pass back, and I'm going to come every day and stand on the side and heckle you mercilessly.
But in a liberal media bias.
Exactly. I know you didn't enjoy that discussion. All right. Later today, again, the Fed announcements at 2:00 Eastern time, at 3:00 Eastern time. Join us for a special episode of Two Way. The great Jim Grant, one of the top financial journalists of the last 100 years, I'm not being hyperbolic there, is going to join us for his first appearance on the platform. He'll analyze the decision, what it means for consumers, for the economy, for our politics, and then we'll be taking your questions. If you're watching on the Two Way platform, you can sign up for that and join, and of course, you can watch on YouTube. Then, decided on the fly during the show, you might have seen me looking down every so often. 9:00 Eastern time, I'll be back with a PM, what we like to call Two-Way After Dark, to review the Trump rally and the Fed decision, everything else that's happened. So 3 p.m. Eastern time, Jim Grant and myself, and then 9 Eastern time, I'll be here. And then just 12 hours after that, seems impossible to believe, Tim, Sean, and I will be back for Thursday's edition of the morning meeting. Thank you for watching. Thanks, everybody, for participating. Guys, see you in 23 hours.
See you at 6.
Bye.